I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 25th, 2007 meeting of the Salina City Commission. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Jelka.
Here.
Commissioner Larson.
Here.
Commissioner Peck.
Here.
Commissioner Perney.
Here.
Commissioner Vanier.
Here. I'd like to invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Our first item on the agenda is the Citizens Open Forum, a time set aside for any citizen who would like to address the Commission on an item that is not on the regularly scheduled agenda. Is there anybody who wishes to come forward? Seeing none, we will move on. There are no awards and proclamations today, nor are there any public hearings and items scheduled for a certain time, so that will bring us to the consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of June 18, 2007. Item 6.2, resolution number 076409, appointing Ramona Newsom to the Arts and Humanities Commission and Truman Carl Kiltz to the Housing Authority. Item 6.3, resolution number 076410, authorizing agreement with Travelers for the renewal of a comprehensive property casualty insurance. Item 6.4, approval of the graphic design and color scheme for the wayfinding signs for the KDOT Transportation Enhancement Project, number 051550.
Any questions on any particular items on the consent agenda? There being none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion is to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0. There's no development business today, so we will continue with items of administration.
Item 8.1, second reading ordinance number 07-10395, granting Southwestern Bell Telephone an ability to provide local exchange services within the city of Salina.
This ordinance passed on first reading on June 18th, and we've had no additional comments since then. Is there any additional public comment? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd move that ordinance number 07-10395 regarding Southwestern Bell Telephone exchange services be approved on second reading.
Second.
Motion is to approve ordinance 07-10395, granting Southwestern Bell Telephone the ability to provide local exchange services within the city of Salina. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Larson.
Aye.
Commissioner Peck.
Aye.
Commissioner Perney.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanier.
Aye.
Mayor Jelka.
Aye.
Item 8.2, authorized purchase of an interactive voice response system for the Water Customer Accounting Division.
Mr. Franz?
Let's sneak up on it. Staff is proposing purchasing an interactive voice response system for the Water Customer Accounting Division. Spent a little time here going over the request for commission action in general and talk a little bit about what the system will do and how we think it will benefit our customer accounting department. Basically, an interactive voice response system allows customers to engage in transactions with the accounting system telephonically. System proposed will interface with and exchange data with our customer accounting system software, permit customers to complete a variety of transactions without staff intervention 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The Selectron Voice Utility, which is the name of the system we're proposing, provides functionalities as follows. It allows customers to retrieve the current balance, to retrieve the last billing date and amount billed, to retrieve the last payment date and amount, to retrieve the next scheduled billing date, to request payment history or account status detail to be delivered by fax or email if we have their email address on file on the account. It has the capability to provide other forms or documents via fax or email. It allows customers to make payments with debit cards, credit cards, or e-checks. It will allow, if we purchase the full system, allow customers to make extended payment arrangements according to rules that we establish that the system will enforce. Provide services in English and Spanish both. System will also have the capacity to provide delinquency notification, that is, notification that they are scheduled for termination of service within the next day or two because of a delinquent balance, and give customers the opportunity to submit payment via credit card at that time if they wish to do so. It's me. Over the past decade or so, the division has seen steady and in some cases fairly rapid growth in a number of the services we've provided. We've started offering recycling and yard waste pickup, and no, my staff don't go out and do that, but each customer that they set up, they've got to go through procedures to make sure that the customer is properly established. It does add to the workload. We began accepting credit and debit cards and extended our office hours. And I've shown a number of indicators of growth. Account growth 12%, that's at a relatively modest rate over a 10-year period. But it's still growth, and it does mean that we have to deal with that many more customers. The collections program growth, and I'll talk a little bit more about the collections program later, 52%. Payment extensions have grown quite extensively. 118%, initiates and terminates by 30%, which tells me that people must be moving perhaps more frequently. Non-pay orders, we've extended office hours, basically half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening. And of course, credit and debit card uses has also extended substantially. A large part of that growth is not people walking to the front counter and paying with a credit card. It's somebody calling us on the telephone. They're due to be turned off tomorrow and they want to pay us. And so a lot of that is telephone traffic and can be fairly time consuming because you've got to take the order from the customer, you write the information down, you enter it to the credit card terminal, and then you have to remember to destroy the stuff you've written the information on. So it's become apparent we're approaching a time when we either have to reduce some services, increase staffing, or change some of the ways in which we do business. We now sometimes push the safety margins on the collection programs. One of our policies on the collections, and again I'll explain that later, is that we send 2 people out to do it. We have on occasion having to send 1 person out, which is not, in my opinion, a particularly good idea. And so we try to avoid that if at all possible, but on some days when we're short-staffed, a couple of people call in sick or they're absent or we're just short-handed, to get everything done that needs to be done in a day, we've sent people out singly. Probably the most effective service will be the collections program. Now I'm going to back up and explain the collections program, which I did not do very comprehensively in the sheet. But essentially, when customers receive, get a notice that they're going to be turned off, and we must do that. It's a due process of law requirement. We have to give them notice, provide them an opportunity to be heard, and provide an adequate time frame in which they're able to do that. That is a legal requirement of the system because water service is considered to be a property right of sorts, and so we cannot deprive customers of that without giving them a due process procedure. The collections program then takes that one step further, and we're not required to do this. We do it because we thought it was a good customer service. And it also saves us some time and money. It was initiated back in the early 90s. But the day before they are actually due to be terminated, we send a couple of staff members out into the field to those customers who are still on the list and have not paid. They go to each house, knock on the door, identify themselves, and basically attempt to collect the bill there. They do not take any money out into the field with them, but of course by the end of the day they do have money with them to come back in. It's been fairly successful. I think it limits the number of accounts that we have to shut off for service, and of course once we shut these people, these customers off, then by and large, particularly those that we can collect from, we have to go back out a second time and turn them back on, and that's where it saves us in some time and effort. That program has grown pretty substantially. A number of years ago, and I'll say 5 to 7 years ago, we were doing 5,000 to 5,500 of those visits a year. That has now grown to a little over 8,000 in the last year. We do have a number of regulars. This seems to be their preferred method of payment, and they simply wait for the water customer accounting staff to come by the door, knock on it, and collect the bills. We've never had an assault. Let me put it that way. We have had circumstances where the staff were very uncomfortable. Those kinds of situations seem to be escalating as time goes by. It may just be somebody who's angry at the door. We've had people sick their dogs on our people. We've had a gentleman answer the door holding a rifle, not threatening. He may have been cleaning it or whatever, but if you're there to collect money, that's a little bit intimidating. We've had people answer the door in various states of dress or not, as the case may be, all of which is uncomfortable. So there are a number of reasons that we're looking at trying not to do that anymore in person. And one of the capacities that really attracted us to this particular IVR system is you can program it to make those telephone calls and substitute a telephone call for a personal visit. So you essentially maintain the service. You do it in a little different way. Is probably not quite as effective at reaching people because there's always going to be a certain number of folks that we don't have the proper phone number for. We do have about 70% of our customers now that have documented phone numbers on the system. Whether or not they're correct or not is a question, because that can change. But obviously, if purchase of the system would be approved, we would spend some time beforehand trying to bring those records up to date, and a fair amount of time and effort in preparing the customer base for the change. Advantages of the system for the customer is clearly convenient access to their account 24 hours a day, ability to pay in the same way 24 hours a day, ability to work out an extension to pay, continuation of the collections program in a somewhat different format as I've referred to. It's bilingual. Greater privacy is one of the things we hear about from customers occasionally is, when we go to do the collection and the folks aren't there, we have a blue card that's probably about this color that we stick on the door. And sometimes customers, particularly those who are not used to this particular activity, feel that's an imposition on their privacy. Their neighbors then know they didn't pay their utility bill, and they become upset about that. We do hear from customers occasionally about that. So the telephone system would afford a greater degree of privacy. And card payments handled in a more secure manner. We no longer have to, at least to the degree we do now, write the information down on paper and then shred it and dispose of it appropriately. For the city, we have increased safety and security, reduction in telephone peak loads to the extent that some of these folks could handle business after hours, more secure card transactions, probable elimination of a half-time position, probable elimination of one vehicle, avoid increase in staffing, and the cost-benefit analysis on the system, including cost of the system, cost of the annual service agreements, and the benefits that we anticipate seeing, including the staff time savings, staff reduction, vehicle reduction, shows the break-even point on the system is about 2 years. We've contacted 4 other communities, ranging in size from 16 to 32,000 customers. They were all very positive about their experience with Selectron and reported anywhere from 30 to 50% reduction in manually handled telephone volume. We anticipate that the implementation would be complete within about 128 days of signing the contract. Cost of the system is configured as $87,314, including modifications that would be required to our base software customer accounting system. Annual support will be $11,348 per year after the first year, which is covered under warranty. Budget for electronic enhancements to customer accounting system was $87,850. This is a sole source purchase. The efficiency of the system depends on interfaces to our HTE customer accounting system, and Selectron is the only vendor that provides this type of system with the necessary links into our accounting system. We're asking that the Commission authorize the purchase at a total implementation cost of $87,314. And as I've said, that's the Selectron system itself at $75,650, and then modifications to our base system at $11,664. I would be glad to try to answer any questions.
Questions of Mr. France?
Cell phones aren't a problem, are they?
Don't believe so. I think you can do this from a cell phone also.
Okay. And the annual support payment, is that to Selectron, or is that split between Selectron?
That is to Selectron,
Okay.
and that is simply so that they will maintain the linkages into HTE as HTE upgrades their system, so
Okay.
it keeps the system current.
So HTE doesn't have a problem with this?
No.
Okay.
That's one of the advantages of the system is they work together pretty closely.
So what happens when you have an actual problem when you need to talk to someone?
They will always be one button push away from a live person.
But how many buttons do you have to push before it tells you what the magic button is? I hate
That's
those
zero.
things.
Hopefully none.
Most systems don't work that way. They don't tell you how to get a person until after you've done a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah, you listen to 3 or 4 menu selections, and then it says if you want to talk to somebody, or you go through 3 levels of menus.
Yeah.
We will try to design it so it's pretty clear to people that if they want to get to a live person, they can do so pretty quickly.
How many people are in this department? Staff?
There are 12 and a half positions, okay.
12 full and 1
people.
part?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you were collecting, were you going during the day? I mean, people work during the day, so
Yes.
you weren't obviously going at night.
No.
Or after hours.
We went during the day. That's the purpose of the blue card, is because
Okay.
a fair number of places you get to, there's no one there, and you leave the blue card, and then when they come home that evening, there are instructions on the blue card as to what they need to do to avoid further difficulty.
Okay. I understand. And people that pay cash obviously won't be able to do it this way, so they will still have to come to your office?
They will either, yes, they would come into the office and pay.
Okay.
I guess I'd like to just, as a side note, I hope you guys do design this so it's very customer friendly, because I, for one, my blood pressure just goes through the roof every time I call somewhere and I get a voice response system.
Yeah.
To me, there is no, other than the bilingual advantage here, there is no advantage to the actual client, in my opinion. So I will be one who will call and press 0. So
People react very differently to these systems.
Yeah.
all I can say is the 4 communities that we talked to, they were well accepted, and I empathize with you because I hate calling business offices and then getting an extended menu and you find out you need to know an extension to talk to who you want to talk to, or you enter the first 3 letters of the last name or whatever, and we're going to try to keep it simpler than that so that they're told up front what the escape button is. And then if they want to do some of these other things, they can make further selections. Because that is a hot button of mine also.
I appreciate you doing your homework with the other communities, and I'll vote in favor of this simply because of the cost savings to the staff and so forth, but not necessarily from a client perspective here.
Well, I'm still completely at a loss of how this helps improve collections. At least, what makes you think that you'll have the current phone number as easy as it is for people to change phones? And if they're not paying their water bill, what makes them think they'd be paying their phone bill?
Especially habitual.
Yeah.
I think you're still going to have to do
All
a
I can
lot
say
of
is
in-person
we
collection.
do have phone numbers on a substantial number of customers. The problem with the collections program is the amount of time it takes, and I think the risk that we put our employees at has escalated over the past years. We are virtually the only city in the state of Kansas that I know of who goes to that extent to try to collect.
Well, if you don't get them by phone, what happens then?
Then they get the reminder the next day or the 2 days later when their water goes off.
Do they ever get a blue sheet on their door?
No, they would not.
Do they ever get anything in the mail?
Yes.
You get the first notice in the mail.
They get a bill, they're given a period of time to pay it, they get a second bill with a past due on it, they get a delinquency notice in addition to that saying that in, I don't know, it's about 10 days, that their service is going to be terminated, and then now we go out and do the collections. Under this proposal, the system would make the calls and say you still have a delinquent bill.
And does it kick it out if no one is at that number, or how will you know that you've gotten through a true phone call? I mean, a true phone number.
Clearly, if they have an answering machine, it will play its message for the answering machine. And I'm not sure if the system gives us reports on failed calls. It gives us a report on failed calls.
Okay.
Commissioners, that really is just kind of an extra part of the due process, even above and beyond.
Yeah.
I think one of the advantages is, and this is probably one of the reasons this is here, is the experience with the other communities who said that they took 30 to 50% of their regular phone traffic, where people called them and said, hey, I want to pay by credit card, and then the person in the office had to manually take that information and put it in, taking away time from someone who might be in line in the office at that time to pay in person. If we can get 30, 40, 50% of that traffic and eliminate it, that'll help us a bunch. But again, if we didn't see any indication that other communities were seeing that type of experience, we probably wouldn't be here. That's really where the biggest advantage is. Given that, though, Rod, I do have a question. The dreaded time of the month where you have the turn-offs coming up, if someone's on that list to be turned off and they call in, they want to pay by credit card, what's that window that they have that the system would recognize and you guys would know not to send someone out to turn off their water? Do you know what that time window is?
The system records the payment as they enter it.
So would it be basically an immediate? I mean, if you got
Yes.
someone out in the
It
field,
would
actually
be just
turning
as
people
if they
off?
came to the front counter and paid us at the front counter. As soon as that credit card is processed through the system, the HTE system then has them recorded as being paid.
Okay. And one of the benefits
it's a real-time system, I guess, in that respect.
sometimes whether it's like Rod said, maybe the person was on vacation, forgot to pay their bill, and in some cases we have those who habitually don't pay. But either way, a lot of times it's kind of embarrassing to have that conversation even with the city staff person, and if this gives them a way to make sure that they pay and they don't have to have that conversation, it gives them another route to do that. Certainly they could choose to come in and do that in person if they want to do that, but it gives them another way to not have that conversation.
How many years does this thing last? You mentioned 2-year payout and something about 5 years. Did it have is that the estimated life of it?
I suspect that it will last as long as we keep the HTE software. I don't know what would wear out.
Okay.
Obviously, there might be a file server or something we might have to replace from time to time, but
Commissioner, it's always, I guess, any company could discontinue that type of product. We don't expect that right now, and you're probably going to see more of these type of products actually in the future. That would be one thing that could cause us to rethink it. But the benefit of having it integrated with HTE is a wonderful thing because it does eliminate a lot of redundancy in that data entry.
And the security level you did say was pretty good for people that are going to, are they going to call in their credit card number over the phone, or is it one of them where they're going to push the buttons on their?
they'll push the buttons. It's not a voice recognition system.
Okay.
So they'll push the buttons on the phone, and the system interprets that as the card numbers.
Okay.
Additional questions? Thank you very much. I'd entertain any public comment if there is any. Commission action?
Mayor, I'd move we authorize purchase of an interactive voice response system from Selectron Technologies at a total implementation cost of $87,314.
Second.
Motion is to authorize the purchase of interactive voice response system from Selectron Technologies at a total cost of $87,314. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
That passes 4-1 with Perny dissenting.
And Mayor, I would move that the City Commission recess into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss with legal counsel matters subject to the attorney-client privilege for the reason that public discussion of those matters would waive the privilege, and reconvene in this room at 4:43.
Second.
Motion is to move into executive session for 15 minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. That passes 5-0. Is there any action expected afterwards?
No, Mayor.
No. Okay.
I never got the comment in about, we just spent an hour talking about